Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage Room. Take a look at games and about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about AI. It's been getting in the news some more. We've covered AI before on this channel, and yeah, we found out that Expedition 33 is actually disqualified from the Indie Game Awards because of use of generative AI that made it into the game at launch. So let's go ahead and dig into this a little bit. We're going to talk about Larian 2, and we're going to go over some reports. So Expedition 33 took Game of the Year and Debut Game. However, at the Indie Game Awards, it was a big decision to actually strip Clair Obscur and Sandfall Interactive from those awards. 6-1 Indie, the creators of the show, said that its removal came after the discovery after voting was done and the show was recorded. Quote, the Indie Game Awards have a hard stance on the use of Gen AI throughout the nomination process and during the ceremony itself. When it was submitted, the game, for consideration, representatives of Sandfall Interactive agreed that no Gen AI was used in the development of Expedition 33. In light of Sandfall Interactive confirming the use of Gen AI on the day of the Indie Game Awards 2025 premiere, this does disqualify Expedition 33 from its nominations. The organizational team behind the ceremony is a small crew and with big ambitions, and the Indie Game Awards can only grow with your help and support. Already can't wait for 2026. So now the awards will actually go to the runners-up. So Debut Game goes to Sorry We're Closed, and Game of the Year goes to Blueprints, which that's a beautiful one. I think that one should win. That's a very good one. But yeah, this is a little disheartening, and I wonder too if anything is going to happen. Now, the Indie Game Awards are very stringent on their rules, and usually Game Awards generally are. But I wonder if, maybe now that this is starting to come out, that it might also be stripped from other titles, which would be horrible and devastating for the studio. I mean, you couldn't go from a higher high to a lower low of losing the Game Awards, especially for your first game as a studio. But I think too, this is just showing that, generative AI, while it can be helpful, it can save time. A lot of people really don't like it right now, including some organizations and institutions. So yeah, this is kind of an issue. Now, the thing to be clear about of why they were stripped is because Sandfall, the studio, said that there was no AI created content in the game, but actually there was on a small lamppost with some stuff on it that AI had actually made. It was more or less a placeholder that made it in. And within 5 days of launch, Sandfall patched that out of the game and replaced it with something else, and then just didn't say anything about it. And now it's coming out that, yes, there was actually generative AI. So not only did they lie intentionally or unintentionally, whichever the thing may be, they did lie about it. And then, even though it was patched, it still had it in there at launch, and that doesn't fit the requirements for the Indie Game Awards. So they were disqualified. And that sucks because they worked so hard. They've garnered so much goodwill. And I think generally most people don't really care to an extent. Okay, most people aren't making their own game or write books or make art, right? Most people don't do that. But there are a lot that do, and games still are an art form. And we've already had a lot of corporatization in our video games already, where it's all about the money and the workflow and squeezing out the highest profit margin that they can instead of just enjoying a game as an art form. But again, if AI is making it, well, AI doesn't have a soul, so therefore basically it can't be art if AI does something, because it's just, again, hodgepodging stuff together from what it's already learned, but it's not actually created or innovative. It's just regurgitated. Now let's talk about Larian Studios. So the CEO, Vink, is saying that a lot has been lost in translation. So basically, he admitted in a Bloomberg interview that there were some AI tools that are used during the game's development for their next game, Divinity, which has been a pretty big series for a long time. But yeah, they're going to be working on the next game, and Baldur's Gate 3 sold like 20 million copies. It sold a ton. They've made a ton of money off of Baldur's Gate 3 and a lot of goodwill too, with not wanting to use microtransactions and all of this other stuff, and just making a good game and having insane profit. Now, during the interview, Vink stated that it would be irresponsible to not evaluate new technologies. And while I agree with that for sure, um, it's exactly how they're using the AI technology because again, I don't want to play like that game Snoop Dogg in Court that's completely all made by AI, right? No human involvement whatsoever. I'm not interested in playing those games because again, I still ultimately see games as an art form, but I also understand the stand of the business that if you're not using an advantage, then you're at a disadvantage from every other studio, and ultimately it's about pulling money towards yourself compared to all of your other competition. Vink also shared that Larian was openly embracing the use of generative AI tools for its development processes on Divinity. Excuse me, no AI work would be in the game itself. Quote, everything is human actors, we're writing everything ourselves, end quote. Larian devs are, per his comments, using AI to insert placeholders, text, and generate concept art for the heavily anticipated RPG. In response to the backlash, holy frick, guys, we're not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI, and shared that the studio was in fact growing its pool of artists rather than shrinking them. We've been able to see that already with some studios and even with some publishers that they're either going to shrink how many employees that they have, which some of the most expensive part of any business is the employee. So yeah, if you get rid of the employee, you're going to be saving quite a bit of money, and they're using AI instead for some of those jobs. So that's getting some people laid off and some studio closures. And again, not just in game development, but any other white collar job. Even Microsoft has said, Satya Nadella, the CEO, has said that the even 20% of their code now that is written is just done by AI at this point, which is crazy. And also, too, the other way of doing it is being allowed to use AI to get more done, and so therefore you don't need to hire future positions. So ultimately, you can get more done with less people. And it's either going to translate today with layoffs, or it's going to translate tomorrow with less positions being open in the future, just generally speaking across the industry. So earlier this year, though, similar comments were made with an interview with GameSpot, where Vink claimed that the studio was using machine learning tools to automate, quote, tasks nobody wanted to do. So again, this is kind of the thing that Larian is now dealing with. And ultimately, I just think the internet is loud. I don't believe the internet is really real. And I think their game will sell just fine. Because again, we're probably looking at a couple more years until the game is really going to come out anyway. I highly doubt it's coming out in 2026. And, you know, it will kind of blow over by then. And there will be a point, too, where people will just accept that AI use is in their game. Let me explain. When we take a look at the report that Unity gave out, this is published in March 18 of 2024, so roughly 20 months ago is what we're looking at, and we're finding out that back then, 56% of AI adopting studios use AI for world building, creating NPCs, and unique experience. This top genre was actually augmented reality and virtual reality and online multiplayer, which is almost a ton of pretty much every single game out there. Unity's report also revealed that 62% of game studios that use AI mainly use it for prototyping, asset creation, and world building. Even Larian said that they're using it for concept art to get the idea. And some people are really not going to enjoy that, but again, that's what they're doing. We take a look at another report that was released at the very beginning of 2025 in January. This is A16Z Games, and they found out that through, polling about 651 employees, we're looking at 73% of game studios are already using AI in their processes, and 88 plan to do so in the future. Dang, that's pretty much everybody. And the thing, too, that I also want to highlight is now looking at August of this year is that, 615 game developers in the were polled basically in the United States, South Korea, Norway, Finland, and Sweden, and found that 97% of respondents believe that Gen AI is reshaping the industry, with a majority of 90% already integrating the technology into their workflows. 90%. And the whole point is to accelerate workflows, drive creative innovation, and make it faster, enhancing player experience, making things a little bit more dynamic or smarter, whatever. The rise of AI agents, which is basically, an employee, you could think of it like that. Industry democratization and navigating ownership and IP concerns. Because again, if AI is not really taking something that was created, it's remaking and reshaping it as its own. And that is going to be somewhat concerning down the road, because can you sue for AI generated content? Be like, hey, you stole our IP. And it's like, no, I used an AI to make it. It's not yours. What do you do then? Because if you can just, not use code, but make something close, can you sue them over it for copyright or IP infringement or something else? Who knows? Something else, too, that I want to talk about is the engines that have AI tools. Unity, Unreal Engine, CryEngine, and Godot Engine. And this is a massive amount of market share in the industry of what's actually used. Because when we take a look at, this is just 2024 data, because we don't have 2025 yet. We'll get that in 2026. But just looking at 2024, we're finding out that Unity, Unreal Engine, Godot, Game Maker, they all have AI tools, and they are the majority of the share for games released with using these engines, and also all units sold. And this is on Steam, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that. But yeah, game engines on Steam in 2025. So we're looking at, let's see, 79, 84, 88% of the games released on Steam used engines that had AI tools in it. 88%. When we're looking at units sold in 2024, again, we're looking at 57, 58, 59. 59% of the games sold on Steam used engines with AI tools. And to think that studios are not using AI, I think is just, you're just out of the picture. You're not thinking with your head at all, because there's as we're seeing through these three reports, whether it's Unity or A16 or from game developer out of Germany, I mean, we're basically finding that more and more studios are taking the adoption. And like Larian, they've said also before that, well, we let the devs decide if they want to or not. But then we also have ones like Crafton that are like, hey, we are an AI first studio. We're going to integrate all of this stuff. Same with Activision Blizzard. Again, they are forcing the use of all of those AI tools. And if you don't like it, you can just go work somewhere else. They will find someone else that will take the job. And ultimately, some people think that maybe this isn't going to catch on, or if people scream loud enough. Again, you guys are all out of your mind, because there's a use case for this. The companies are benefiting. Something we got to see, too, with corporate adoption of AI is that Microsoft can't keep up. They have said, I think, 3 or 4 quarters now, that while they're providing more bandwidth, so to speak, for AI tools for their companies that use their businesses and services, is that every time they expand their bandwidth, it's completely used up and there's still more demand. 3 or 4 quarters in a row now. And last quarter, they expanded like crazy. They basically doubled their capacity for AI use through Azure and Copilot and whatever else, and still it's not enough. Just think about that. Corporate America and anyone else, corporate global around the world is just demanding AI use. So whether you're working in some other industry, whether you're a game developer, this is just where stuff is going. And whether it's Microsoft, Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, your favorite game studios, they're probably all using AI, guys. I mean, let's be real, because all we're seeing from in the last 20 months is that just more studios and more developers are using it. It also makes it a lot easier for indie developers to make games with small teams or even by themselves. And I want to say, too, that, remember when procedural generation used to be a hated thing? Now, it wasn't necessarily AI, but still it was an algorithm. It was a machine making a ton of stuff. It wasn't people making stuff. And it's easy to see that. I think Starfield is a good example of that as a recent one. But when we start looking of all of the games that have basically been made with procedural generation, well, now people just don't care. They don't give a rip. They couldn't care less, right? They couldn't care less. And I think the same thing is going to happen going forward with everything else with this AI tool. And it's already in the majority of the development for game engines that are used. It's already the majority of games that are sold on Steam. It's already in the majority of every single survey that we've had for 2 years, where we're just seeing AI tools being used, and AI is a part of the process and a part of the team and all of that stuff. Used anything from replacing workers to just being able to have the current workers do more. And it's all toward profit. So I don't care what your favorite company is. I don't really care, what you think about the industry or how you're feeling about this. This is not going anywhere. And if you're complaining so much and saying that this stuff shouldn't happen, and all of the whining online that has been coming from this, you guys are hypocrites if you're buying the content. Because what's the point of complaining if you're just going to continue to buy the product anyway? And I'm not necessarily saying that to be mean. It's just a reality check. Because really, what's the point? It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And even if we have, let's say, an AI crash through OpenAI and Microsoft and Micron and whatever else, AI is still going to be here. It was the same when people thought of the internet. Oh, that's not going to take off. It was the same thing with Netflix becoming a service. No, we're not going to do that. It was the same thing with the push of subscriptions. It was the same thing with robotics being implemented in the automotive industry. I mean, you name it. It is progress moves forward with or without you. In life, in the stores, in your money, in your job, in your entertainment, your hobbies. What are you going to do? And while I personally don't like it myself, again, what am I going to do? There's no way to escape this. If you can think of one, let me know. Just don't buy games. That could work. Are most people going to do that? No. So again, what's the point? And is Larian going to fail because they use AI tools in their game? No. Are people still now not going to buy, or are they going to now destroy their copy or delete their copy of Expedition 33? No. Are people also going to check in the future about if a game uses AI? No. They already didn't. And people aren't going to remember. And studios are already using it. Yeah. That's all I got for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. You can always follow me at GamingGarbage22 over at YouTube. We have a playlist there for tons of stuff, and we have various content coming out every single week, me, myself, and I. And if something's not for you, don't sweat it. You can just move on to the next thing. You can also follow me over at Twitch if you'd like it. Don't tread on the... And yeah, if you'd like to chat, perfectly okay. I'll definitely chat back when I'm playing games. But if you'd rather just be a silent partner, hey, that's totally okay too. No worries. And with that, folks, I don't know. Leave your comments in the whatever, good or bad. I embrace it. I'll see you guys on the next one.